Okay, welcome back, Team Resistance. This is the 2021 Programming Apprentice Training. Last time around we covered how to install software, where to find it. This time we're going to cover how to use it. My name's Jim Huffman. I've been a programming mentor since 2012. So the first thing I'm going to show you is where to find some information on VS Code. Of course, the first place we want to check is the docs under WPILib overview. I'll get it out. The other spot is obviously VS Code itself has some docs. It's a little more generic than our FRC stuff, but it'll cover a lot of good things. In there we'll find the various windows, what they do, what goes in them, where do you do the editing. We'll find menus, some command bars and status bars. Then we'll move on to the WPI command palette, Control-Shift-P or the WPI button. From there we'll create a project. Finally, we're getting into some code. We'll show you the layout of Robot Java. We'll show you what Robot Ini and Robot Periodic is used for. And there's some other Inis and periodics to cover. So we're going to go ahead and start. Let's go. All right, so here we are at FRC Control Systems. This should start looking familiar to you. We're going to scroll on down to WPILib overview. We can pretty much skip over the known issues. We're pretty much out of that area. But you're welcome to go ahead and read through them. Nothing big there. What is WPILib? Go ahead and read about that. But what we're interested in is Visual Studio Basics and the WPILib extension. So there's where you would find a lot of information about that. Of course, the other spot you want to look is Visual Studio Code. You can start here, but you might want to do a get started, come down to the user interface. This is what we're going to be discussing here in a second. So if we scroll on down, you can see there's a description of each of these areas that we'll be discussing. You can see there's some shortcuts, a lot of good information here. Let's go ahead and read through all this. But let's take a quick look at the main window. Let's get a little closer here. There we go. You can see there's a set of buttons that run up this left-hand side, sorry about that. Down this left-hand side. It's called the activity bar. File basically sets up a file explorer here in this grouping. You've got a search. You've got version control. We're not going to cover too much of that here. That's as a team or as a group, we'll probably cover that a lot more. Debugging, and this is extensions. Extensions are add-ons to the Visual Studio Code program. I would avoid it unless you know what you're doing, for the time being anyway. Some of the extensions can step on the FRC tools, so just be aware of that. Don't get too adventurous yet. We usually can fix it. We can uninstall them or reinstall the software, but don't get too adventurous at this point. All right. So the sidebar is where we'll see our files pop up. Here's our editor or editor groups. You can have more than one window open to edit in. Down here is our console terminal panel. A couple different things will pop up down here and split. And down here at the bottom, something everybody misses is the status bar. There's a lot of good information. It's right there. See that? That's space 2. We like space 4. So you find you can change that right there. Good information. So let's move on. All right, so let's launch a Visual Studio Code. This is splash screen. This is what pops up the first time in. I like to see my little menu over here, my files. So I'm going to start the Explorer. Notice there's some new files, new folders. I wouldn't click on them at this point. I would say stay away from those. We're going to do a FRC project. You're welcome to use those if you were doing a Hello World, if you're following along on the Blue Pelican Java PDF. But for our needs, we need a bunch of other stuff that comes with the FRC WPI library. There's two ways to get to it. Control-Shift-P is palette. And then you type in WPI. It brings up the WPI library tools. You can see there's a whole bunch of them in there. If you're working with some other stuff, you can see that there's a whole bunch of other things in the listing. The other shorter way is to come over here, and on the top bar here is a WPI button. Go ahead and click on that, and it does the same thing with the WPI already filled in. So the first thing we're going to want to do is create a new project. We're going to start with a template, language, Java, project base. Team Resistance uses the timed robot. You're welcome to check out these other ones, but Team Resistance has found timed robot to be the best for us. Folder, where are we storing all this stuff? Well, on my machine, under Documents, I've created a folder called _FRC. And this is where I keep all my projects. Go ahead and select just the folder. You don't have to create the project, because down here is create a new folder, highly recommended, be checked, right? So what's it going to call? It's going to be my robot. Oop. Right? What's your team number? I hope you know Team 86 by now. This last line is if we're doing the simulator, right? We are using the simulator. If you're not using the simulator, if you're working directly with the RoboRio, then you have to leave that unchecked. And there's instructions that we'll cover a little bit later when we get into the simulator as to how to turn that on and off. So let's go ahead and generate a project. Yes, I want to generate it. I want to open it. So it's busy. Yeah, I know. I've got to update stuff. Always got to update. Let's see. We've got, it's building the project. Notice it's got a great old W build. So it is building the template. Over here in my files, I've got a source. That's what SRC stands for. Under source, we've got the Java. Under Java, we've got two files. One is called main, right? We won't be touching this. This is for FRC. This is what launches your program. So we won't be touching that. The one we will be playing with is Robot Java. Robot Java, the first thing it does is import timed robot. Bunch of the stuff we're not going to use. It's kind of a default for testing. We'll delete most of this. So you're welcome to scroll through it. But the one thing I do want to look at right now is this robot ini. We're initializing the robot. Anything that happens every time you launch the robot that needs to be initialized one time, it runs here. Gets put in this location. Anything that needs to run anytime the robot is running, every 25 milliseconds, it gets put here. Notice there's some other ones. There's an autonomous initialize. There's also an autonomous periodic. If we're running on autonomous mode for the first 10-15 seconds of the game, the code would go here that needs to be initialized. The gyro needs to be set to 0. Okay, it goes here. Periodic, if something needs to be updated every 25 milliseconds, call to that code goes here. There's also teleop periodic, teleop initialize, and teleop periodic. Same idea. Once the autonomous mode is done, it switches to driver mode, teleop mode. Anything that needs to be initialized in teleop goes in teleop initialize. Anything that needs to run every 25 milliseconds goes in teleop periodic. And we've got a test initialize and test periodic. So if we're testing code, we can throw some calls in down here and take care of that. Okay, at this point I think we're going to call it a day. I'll let you get a chance to absorb some of this stuff, read through some of the documents, create this basic shell here. And next time we're going to start programming. We'll clean this up, add a little code, and start testing. So enjoy. Finally, let's be patient, be flexible. We're open to suggestions. If you see something that needs changing, let me know. Next time we'll be doing some Java programming. Good luck. Talk to you later.